Interstate 485, the Charlotte Outerbelt. For those who use it daily for commuting, you feel like you can't live with it, but at the same time, you can't live without it. And why would you want to? So in this video, we're going to take a look at Interstate 485, the ring road that circles the city of Charlotte, North Carolina, and how it took Charlotte from a small regional player to a name on the national stage of American cities, as well as some of the lessons learned about demand and growth by the NCDOT with the building and construction of Interstate 485. So go ahead, hit that like button, subscribe if you love the content, and let's get into it. So first off, what is Interstate 485? Interstate 485 is a beltway interstate highway that encircles the city of Charlotte, North Carolina. It is an auxiliary route of the major north-south Interstate 85. It runs for a little over 66 miles, with the mileage starting at the southern interchange with I-77 and running clockwise around the rest of the loop. I-485 does not use cardinal directions such as north and south to describe its orientation. Instead, North Carolina opted for an inner-outer signage to limit driver confusion. Inner being the side of the roadway closest to the city and running clockwise, while the outer is the outside lanes running counterclockwise. The entire route lies within Mecklenburg County, the home county of Charlotte, but it does come very close to neighboring Union County on its southeastern side. Much of the highway is named the James G. Martin Freeway, the then North Carolina governor who oversaw the opening of the first segment of the highway, while the western side is named for Senator Craig Lawing, who represented Mecklenburg County. Unlike beltways in other major cities, I-485 uses various Charlotte area suburbs as control cities rather than being promoted as a bypass route for Interstates 77 or 85 in Charlotte, signaling North Carolina's view of the highway as a route for inter-suburban connectivity more so than for bypassing the city of Charlotte. Interstate 85 was not originally planned as part of Charlotte's interstate highway network, as Charlotte was a smaller city on the national stage way back in the 1950s. It was first conceived in the mid-1970s, a circumferential route deemed necessary to manage the anticipated growth of the Charlotte area and to disperse traffic away from the central business district. Back in this time, Mecklenburg County had a population of around 400,000 people. Construction was incremental, with the first section opening in 1990 in South Charlotte. Interstate 485 proved a concept called latent demand in the Charlotte area. Immense demand for additional commercial and residential development around the edges of the city. Not realizing this level of demand, NCDOT originally designed the highway as a standard 4-lane rural freeway. And in 1990, when the highway opened, it was almost immediately overwhelmed. The tiny suburb of Pineville was transformed into a retail juggernaut, with major commercial developments popping up almost overnight, while the adjacent Ballantyne area exploded with development. This shocking explosion of growth led to the highway being outdated in this area as soon as it was built, and North Carolina DOT rethinking the design of other planned segments of the highway. By the time the loop was finally completed in 2015, Mecklenburg County stood at over 1 million people. And recognizing the error in their original plans, NCDOT designed the final segment with 8 lanes, and to no surprise, this is one of the best flowing segments of the highway to this day. The older parts of the highway have been undergoing continuous upgrades since opening, along with more planned for the future. So how has Interstate 485 affected the Charlotte area? One can say that North Carolina did successfully predict the need for Interstate 485, getting the roadway planned and built before the Charlotte area sprawled out too much for it to be financially and politically infeasible. It has played a key role in the development of edge city areas of Charlotte, such as University City and Ballantyne. These areas have become major commercial centers of the city outside of the central business district. Along with these areas, various nodes of commercial activity have popped up along the route. At the time of completion, I actually lived in the University City area of Charlotte and watched this area around Prosperity Church Road pop up and develop seemingly overnight. Massive single-family home subdivisions began appearing near the roadway, fueling growth in the area and attracting large numbers of transplants from expensive northern states. All but one of Charlotte's major shopping malls is located along the I-485 corridor. However, it is perhaps the Ballantyne area that is the best example of how I-485 spurred growth. This area has become a major commercial center outside of uptown Charlotte with various live, work, and play areas, growing so much that some of the more delusional folks in the area once proposed that it become its own separate city from Charlotte. But good thing that foolishness never happened. That's not how we do things here in North Carolina, my friends. And with all the growth, North Carolina has had its work cut out for it, trying to upgrade the older section of the roadway to meet demand. In the future, North Carolina has decided to add express lanes to the southern part of the highway to deal with the huge population increase. Now, what is it like to drive on Interstate 485? Well, I've probably driven on this loop more times than any other, so I'm going to tell you all about it here. We're going to start in the southeast in Matthews and head counterclockwise along I-485 Outer. I used to work down in Indian Trail, so this is a very familiar spot to travel. Immediately starting out, we see construction barriers. This is a section of the roadway that was originally designed with just 4 lanes and was outdated pretty soon after opening. We see signage for East John Street, the main street for the suburb of Matthews. It has a cute little downtown, so you can take this one if you want to take a glimpse of it. You'll also notice Indian Trail sign here, as in part, thanks to 485, this tiny suburb overtook the county seat of Monroe in population to become the largest municipality in Union County. And as such, city leaders lobbied for the town's inclusion on signage along Interstate 485. Next up, we're going US 74, Independence Boulevard. It is signed for Charlotte and Monroe, and parts of it have been upgraded to an expressway over the years. I used to call this highway Death by 1,000 traffic lights before the Monroe bypass was built a few years back. North Carolina has been trying to upgrade the portion in Charlotte for decades. Maybe they'll be done by the year 2100. After the Independence Boulevard exit, we enter the most calm and rural portion of Interstate 45. This portion is still in its original 4-lane condition, but development has not been as intense out here as some other parts of the roadway. This is also the side of the beltway where you'll encounter locals who want to test the top speed of their vehicles. Watch for Chargers, Challengers, Camaros, and Mustangs. Usually they're about to do something stupid. Notice the lack of commercial development on this side. Instead, it is mostly small subdivisions. Though at one point a shopping mall was proposed in the Mint Hill area, but that never came to fruition. After this area, you eventually reach Albemarle Road. And at this folded diamond interchange, we get our 3rd lane. Now, unless it's rush hour, you can probably cruise along this section of 485 pretty nicely. Just watch for the random Nissan Altimas speeding with no tags. Shortly after the Rocky River exit, we finally enter Charlotte proper into its University City neighborhood. To get into the heart of the University City area is the exit for North Carolina 49, which also takes you to a pretty nice school called UNC Charlotte. Pretty fitting how the UNC Charlotte 49ers are located right along North Carolina 49. Apparently, some pretty outstanding engineers also come from here. I mean, come on. Then there is US 29 or Tryon Street, Charlotte's main north-south street. You can find attractions off this exit such as the PNC Music Pavilion and Charlotte Motor Speedway, along with a Quick Trip gas station. And afterwards we encounter the parent route, I-85 for the first time. This interchange is a large turbine-style interchange. And before the last segment was completed, it was actually a trumpet-style interchange with plans to become a large stack interchange. However, North Carolina modified those plans later on in order to cut cost, as turbine interchanges don't have as many high bridges as your typical stack interchange. You'll see Huntersville for keeping straight, with Spartanburg, South Carolina, and Greensboro if you hop onto I-85. Now, this section here was the last part to open, and as such, it is the most modernized and free-flowing section of the highway. I-485 opens up to 8 lanes, well designed to accommodate future Charlotte growth. And our next interchange is Mallet Creek Road. This is a diverging diamond interchange, the first one built in the Charlotte area. Just north of this interchange is a good example of development created by Interstate 485. Outside of Concord Mills, none of this stuff existed prior to the last 485 section opening. Now look, apartments, homes, and a booming retail area. Around the Prosperity Church Road interchange, North Carolina decided to build this interesting configuration with roundabouts at each intersection. And like the previous interchange, much of this retail and residential development did not previously exist. This area is known as Highland Creek, a highly desirable subdivision that was annexed by Charlotte back in 2007. Next, we start coming into what is considered North Charlotte, and the signage appears for Interstate 77. Old Statesville Road is here also, as you will need to take the I-77 exit to access that one as well. The 4th lane is exit only and will not be coming back. 485 has signage for Pineville, while I-77 is signed with Statesville and Charlotte. Not signed is the fact that I-77 northbound towards Statesville also takes you into the popular Lake Norman area, known for its affluent neighborhoods and bad traffic. Here at I-77 is another I-485 node containing North Lake Mall, along with various other major shopping areas. Harris Boulevard appears here to help you get there. Now, this side of the Beltway was built with 6 lanes, and NCDOT does advertise on I-77 that it can be used to bypass Central Charlotte. Our next major interchange is North Carolina 16, or Brookshire Boulevard. Brookshire is a major industrial corridor in West Charlotte. You can also find a continuous flow intersection just off this exit. The Brookshire exit is often backed up in the afternoon if you're headed northbound, so be prepared for that. Then after passing Freedom Drive, a major arterial for West Charlotte, we begin approaching the other Interstate 85 interchange. Now this is where things start to get interesting, at least in terms of traffic. The interchange features commuter lanes to also access Wilkinson Boulevard, our second encounter with both US 74 and US 29. If you happen to be going on I-85 north, you should be fine. But if you're going towards I-85 south, which most people are, this exit is a nightmare. Inaccurately forecasting growth and demand, North Carolina built this flyover with just 1 lane, and both I-485 ramps converge into a single lane attempting to get onto I-85 southbound. On this ramp, if the sun is out, you'll see congestion. It has quickly become one of the worst bottlenecks in the Charlotte area. Also near this interchange is the Charlotte Douglas International Airport, 11th busiest in the United States. Looking kind of similar to Atlanta, right? Airport next to the southern interchange with I-85. 485 maintains 6 lanes out here, but it's more busy than the other parts we've seen so far. At Steel Creek Road, access is provided to the Charlotte Premium Outlets and the Steel Creek neighborhood. Steel Creek Road is a congested nightmare roadway that was quickly overwhelmed by the rapid growth of Charlotte. However, there are plans to widen it to accommodate modern traffic demands. So even though the sign says Fort Mill, I recommend you waiting until I-77 to get there rather than using this interchange. 485 struggles to remain free-flowing out here as we approach Tryon Street again. This time it carries North Carolina 49. After Tryon Street, we enter a major industrial area with several warehouses and logistics companies near the highway. At the southern interchange with I-77, we have North Carolina's only stack interchange. Signage shows Columbia and Charlotte, and you can take I-77 northbound to get into downtown. Rock Hill and Fort Mill, South Carolina are also accessible via I-77, though they don't appear on the signs. After I-77 is the first portion of the highway that opened that we talked about earlier. It is now 6 lanes, with express lanes pending, up from the original 4-lane highway. First is Little Pineville. The area surrounding the 2 Pineville interchanges went from open land to today being the largest shopping district in all of North Carolina, with the population more than tripling between 1990 and 2020. Also of note is that Pineville rejected the light rail extending to its downtown, so it instead ends just north of 485, a decision that I'm sure it regrets today. Another interesting note about Pineville is that you'll see some of the dealerships here market themselves as South Charlotte, despite being in Pineville. And some Pineville leaders took issue with this branding, but as you can see, they lost that battle, further signaling the dominance of their much larger neighboring city. Once we re-enter the Charlotte city limits, we are in the Ballantyne area. The main interchange here is Johnston Road, which can be used to get into the heart of Ballantyne. This interchange was redesigned with a flyover ramp for traffic going from Johnston Road to I-485 Inner when the old interchange proved incapable of handling this movement. You can spot some large office buildings from the highway as Ballantyne flexes its status as a second commercial center outside of downtown Charlotte. Construction cones were visible the last time I was there as North Carolina wraps up construction of the express lanes. Afternoon traffic in this section can be brutal, so avoid it when possible. If you live in Ballantyne and you work in Uptown, I feel for you. At Ray Road, you can exit for more shopping along with some of Charlotte's wealthiest neighborhoods nearby. Then we meet NC16 again. This time it is Providence Road. Off this exit is the massive Waverly Shopping Center, an area that I spent many a days in traffic trying to get some lunch. But you can't say that they don't have plenty of parking spaces. After Ray Road is our last interchange, one of which was actually not included with the original construction of I-485, Weddington Road. Weddington Road shockingly takes you to none other than the suburb of Weddington. And ongoing construction is happening out here as well to upgrade the highway to 6 lanes. And that completes the circle as we come back to East John Street. All right, so that is it about Interstate 485. So what lessons can we take away from the construction and the impact that this interstate has had on the Charlotte area? Well, even though there are some critics of the type of development that ring roads bring, I have to say that they're usually a net positive. You see, it helped disperse traffic from major interstates 77 and 85 around and outside of the city, leading to better traffic flow within the city of Charlotte itself. And it also helped facilitate the growth, as we've seen, of places such as Valentine, which didn't even exist before Interstate 485. And as far as Charlotte goes, Interstate 485 and all this growth has helped bring it up to a major player on the national stage, with some officials in the city dreaming of Charlotte one day rivaling Atlanta for dominance in the South. But realistically, Charlotte is quite a ways away from that ever happening. But it is nice to dream. So overall, Interstate 485 is a positive for the Charlotte area. The biggest lesson learned, perhaps, though, is the concept of latent demand. Understanding how much demand for roadway capacity there is in a given area. You see, just simply building a new superhighway does not, in itself, bring a ton of growth. For example, if you built a brand new superhighway in the Detroit, Michigan area, it's not going to necessarily transform Detroit back to the powerhouse that it was in the mid-20th century. But in the case of North Carolina, all of the ingredients for growth were in place with policies instituted by the officials in this state. So when 485 was built, everything around it just turned into gold, bringing tons of people, tons of revenue, and tons of development. Now, it's not a slight against the planners and the engineers who designed 485 with only 4 lanes in the beginning. Predicting growth can be one of the hardest things to do when it comes to infrastructure planning. And if we all knew that Charlotte was going to become this popular, we would have been buying real estate way back then. I mean, when I first moved to Charlotte during the Great Recession, you could rent an apartment in uptown Charlotte for $700 a month. I know that's hard to believe. But at the end of the day, it's probably better to overbuild than to underbuild, if you can afford it. But that's all we got for today, guys. Thanks for watching the video. Let me know what you think down in the comments about Charlotte, ring roads, Interstate 485 in general, and I will see you on the next one.